round where we do a recap of stories that made headlines during the week. Our top stories this hour. Federal High Court in Abuja sentences 3 suspects to life imprisonment for abducting students and teachers in a rural local government area of Oyo State, bringing the high-profile criminal trial to a close. Budget Office says no funds were released or spent by the PFIPC despite the agency's 1.3 billion naira allocation in the 2026 budget. Plus this week, Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice Lateef Fagbemi calls for stronger regional collaboration to crush transnational financial crime at the Regional Anti-Corruption Summit. China assures US imposes tariffs on 60 trading partners, fueling fresh tensions and escalating the global trade war. That's news round in view. Many thanks indeed for joining us here on the program. Wherever you're watching from around the world, we are live from our HQ studios in Lagos, Nigeria. I'm Kelly Egiga. We begin news run this hour at the Federal High Court Abuja, where Justice Salim Ibrahim on Thursday sentenced 3 persons to life in prison over their complicity in the kidnapping of students and teachers of a school in Oruro local government area of Oyo State. Justice Ibrahim convicted and sentenced the defendants Abdulrazak Umar and Shamsu Adamu Sani after they pleaded guilty to some of the allegations the federal government had leveled against them.
The 3 suspects arrested by the Department of State Services over their alleged complicity in the recent abduction of students in Orire local government area of Oyo State arrived to Federal High Court Abuja for their arraignment. They were charged with conspiracy, aiding the commission of kidnapping, concealment of information about activities of terrorists, and concealment of information about their abduction. They are also accused of professing to be members of a proscribed terrorist group in Nigeria, among other charges. The 3 pleaded guilty to charges bordering on concealment of information about the activities of those behind the abduction and professing to be members of the terrorist group. Umar, listed as first defendant, is the only one mentioned in counts 7, 8, 9, and 10. He pleaded guilty to all the 4 counts. However, they all pleaded not guilty to counts 1, 2, 3, and 5. In his ruling, Justice Ibrahim sentenced them to a maximum jail term of life imprisonment on count 6 and 25 years on count 4. Also, the judge sentenced Omar to life imprisonment on counts 7, 9, and 10 and gave him 20 years on count 8. The prosecution speaks on the sentence, while the defense was not available for comments.
The sentencing that my lord opposed today clearly demonstrates the commitment of the judiciary to the fight against terrorism, to show that in our jurisdiction, violent or no violent crimes has no place to stay. So in all, we are happy with the decision of the court, and we are still using this opportunity to encourage our people that when you see something, you say something. Failure to disclose the activity of your family members and friends that you know are connected to crime is more or less your demonstration of accepting and agreeing with the unlawful activity that they are perpetrating.
The judge set September 16 for the commencement of trial on the charges that they pleaded not guilty. Emanuela Ekele, Channels Television News.
The House of Representatives Ad Hoc Committee investigating the alleged establishment of the Presidential Foreign Investment Promotion Council on Monday summoned the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation to explain just how the controversial agency got an office allocation in the Federal Secretariat. The summons followed the submission of the head of the Civil Service of the Federation, Mrs. Didi Esther Wilson-Jack, who told the committee that her office never allocated office space for all deployed staff to the agency.
Fact-finding.
The House of Representatives Ad Hoc Committee investigating the legal status, operations and budgetary inclusion of the Presidential Foreign Investment Promotion Council, PFIPC, has begun its public hearing with a pledge to determine whether the council was established in accordance with the law. The sitting is attended by the House Leader, Professor Julius Yovere, who represented the Speaker, members of the committee, the head of the Civil Service of the Federation, representatives to the Central Bank of Nigeria, and other government officials. During the hearing, the committee chairman, Mr. Yusuf Gaddi, raised questions on the office allocation to the controversial agency as well as the deployment of staff to the council.
You are the head of civil service of the Federation. You are going to help us work with Nigerian people. You are working with the Nigerian people. We want to know who authorizes the request for organizational structure for the PFIPC.
From our records, the council in question submitted a request to the OHCSF for approval of its organizational structure on the 6th of August 2025 without providing the requisite documents. Consequently, the request was not granted.
She also explained that although an authorized establishment for 314 staff positions was issued, the council's request for approval of its organizational structure was not granted because it failed to provide the required documents.
While there is speculation that the council occupied office space in the Federal Secretariat, Phase 3, we can state categorically that the Office of the Head of the Civil Service of the Federation did not allocate any office space to the PEAC-PFICP. The office space indicated as the Council's physical address in the Federal Secretariat Phase 3 is part of the office spaces allocated to the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, vid letter dated 16th November 2023, to reallocate as they deem fit for the use of the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation and presidential aids.
Following her submission, the committee directed the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation to appear to provide explanations on the office allocation for the council.
We are going to invite the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation to come and explain how the office space was allocated to the Presidential Foreign Investment Promotion Council and Presidential Economic Advisory Council.
However, the committee expressed displeasure over the absence of some invited agencies, including the Inspector General of Police, the Ministries of Finance and Foreign Affairs, as well as the Accountant General of the Federation. The committee says it will continue its investigation, promising fair hearing while ensuring transparency and accountability. Benny Ark, Channels Television News.
Let's stay with the PFIPC story for a moment, as the Budget Office of the Federation on Friday also confirmed that no public fund was spent by the Presidential Foreign Investment Promotion Council despite its 1.3 billion naira 2026 budget allocation. Director General Tanimu Yakubu gave the clarification before a House of Reps ad hoc committee investigating the council at the National Assembly in Abuja. According to Mr. Yakubu, his office instructed the Treasury and Ministry of Finance to freeze all payment instruments, blocking all disbursement.
The Budget Office did not create the council, it did not assign its code, it did not approve its establishment, it did not grant its recruitment waiver, it received official instruments and did what the law required of it. It measured their fiscal effect. The Budget Office did not issue financial clearance for the council because the conditions were incomplete. The 2026 appropriation bill did not become law until presidential assent on 31st March 2026. Before that date, the Budget Office could cost the proposal. It could not grant final financial clearance against a bill that had not yet become law. After assent, a further condition remained outstanding. The National Salaries, Incomes and Wages Commission had not confirmed that the proposed staffing and remuneration arrangements complied with its prescribed template and the approved public service compensation framework. The Budget Office could calculate the cost, it could not open the gate. There was therefore no financial clearance. There was no lawful recruitment, there was no payroll enrollment, there was no salary payment. The process never began, no financial clearance was issued, no recruitment took place, no payroll record was created, no salary became due. Not one kobo of the personnel provision could lawfully have been drawn. Not one kobo was drawn. There is no personnel expenditure to recover because there was no personnel expenditure.
Committee Chairman Yusuf Gagdi emphasized that the probe aims to uncover how the legally unbacked agency enters the budget and prevents future occurrences.
I say this so that while we ask question, you should know that we are asking question based on the document before us, not the cameras before us. In the whole of this process, if I should summarize the submission, recruitment waiver is the responsibility of the Office of the Head of Civil Service, which is part of what we are investigating. And in this report, we have said how he blocked that because those clearances were not given.
The Inspector General of Police, Olatunji Diso, has ordered commissioners of police and other senior officers across the country to strengthen surveillance, improve intelligence gathering, and deepen collaboration with other security agencies in order to tackle insecurity in the country. On Friday, the IGP was speaking in Abuja at a strategic meeting with senior police officers. Mr. Diso says the successes recorded by the force in recent months in the fight against criminality must be sustained.
It is the monthly strategic meeting of the Inspector General of Police with senior officers from the rank of Commissioner of Police and above.
1992.
The meeting begins with the declaration of 13 senior officers with their new ranks. The Inspector General of Police charged the senior officers to lead with integrity, shun corruption in order to build public trust and confidence.
Effective policing starts with effective leadership. As Commissioner of Police and Strategic Commanders, you are the custodian of public confidence in your commands. Leadership is not measured by the authority you hold. It is measured by the standard you set, the confidence you inspire, and the results you deliver. I expect every Commissioner of Police to lead with purpose, keep their command operationally ready, and hold officers to standard of professionalism, discipline, respect for the right of every citizen. Corruption, extortion, abuse of authority, unlawful detention, and any other form of unethical conduct undermines everything we are trying to build.
Done with the declaration, the IGP underscores the importance of leadership as she warns against corruption and unprofessional acts by police officers.
Distinguished senior officers, what we are trusted with will be well running the public institution. We are responsible for public confidence, and national stability and the democratic value this republic stands on. As we return to your command, I ask you to turn to this discussion into real, measurable outcomes. Lead with vision, supervise with diligence, hold the line and discipline, back innovation, strengthen the ties with communities and with sister agencies, invest in your people. Every generation of public police leadership faces the moment that defines the institution's future. I believe this is one of our own. What shapes the future of policing in Nigeria will not be the fighting of the challenges we face, but the vision, professionalism, and the unity we bring to meeting them.
The meeting, which continued behind closed doors, is a monthly exercise which provides an opportunity to senior police officers to meet with the Inspector General of Police to review security strategies.
Watching news run, and we're due for a break, but just ahead, following their displacements from South Africa, over 60 Nigerians are beginning life afresh in River State. We'll tell you all about it in just a moment. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the program, everyone. This is News Round. I am Kelly Egiga here in Lagos. The Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice Lateef Fagbemi on Tuesday called on anti-corruption institutions across West Africa to break what he described as the silence of financial crime, saying the region's rapidly evolving criminal landscape demands stronger collaboration, innovation and decisive enforcement to tackle transnational corruption. He made the call at the maiden edition of the Leadership Conference of the Network of National Anti-Corruption Institutions in West Africa.
With rising cross-border financial crimes, heads of anti-corruption institutions from across West Africa converge on Abuja for the maiden edition of the Leadership Conference of the Network of National Anti-Corruption Institutions in West Africa. The conference, themed Transformational Leadership for Effective Anti-Corruption Institutions in West Africa, seeks to strengthen collaboration and enhance institutional capacity in combating corruption across the sub-region.
Corruption environment has changed significantly. Criminal networks increasingly operate across borders. Illicit financial flows move through multiple jurisdictions within seconds. Digital platforms and emerging technologies create new opportunities for development, but they also produce new forms of fraud, concealment, manipulation, and financial crimes. Artificial intelligence is transforming the way information is generated, analyzed, and deployed.
Delivering the keynote address, the Attorney General of the Federation called for innovative strategies to confront increasingly sophisticated criminal networks. He also referenced a recent Supreme Court judgment on the forfeiture of assets linked to a former governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, maintaining that assets reasonably established as proceeds of crime should be forfeited in accordance with the law.
Public office is not a license for personal enrichment. It is a sacred trust. Those entrusted with public resources must always be prepared to account for how those resources are managed. Only a few days ago, gentlemen, the Supreme Court of Nigeria reaffirmed the effectiveness of our civil asset forfeiture regime. That judgment stands as a powerful affirmation that the rule of law remains the bedrock of our anti-corruption architecture, and that our institutions are capable of delivering justice without fear or favor.
Meanwhile, participants at the conference say the platform offers an opportunity to exchange best practices and strengthening professional networks that can be replicated in their respective countries.
A learning and sharing of experiences, so we can bring ours, which includes what we do with naming and shaming, asset recovery, borderless investigation, and things that can help improve the fight against corruption in West Africa.
With the conference, all of us can vote together so that if there's a case that we are handling, it is a cross-border crime, we can quickly contact our neighbors or the other institutions or state institutions, then you can fight it.
As West African nations grapple with increasingly complex financial crimes, it is expected that this leadership conference will strengthen regional partnerships capable of safeguarding the region's future. From Abuja, Victoria Longchan, Channels Television News.
To other stories, after arriving in two batches on July 3rd and July 19th following their displacements from South Africa, over 60 Nigerians are beginning life afresh in Rivers State. The returnees who are temporarily accommodated by the Omega Power Ministries in Alu on Wednesday said while they are grateful for the support, rebuilding their lives will require the help of the government for proper reintegration. Our correspondent in Rivers State, Deborah Mie Fiburesena, visited the facility to see how they are settling into their new environment.
After the ordeal of being forced to leave their homes and livelihoods in South Africa, they returned with little more than memories of a journey cut short, carrying the weight of uncertainty and the hope of starting again. Following the arrival of the South Africa returnees, the founder of Omega Power Ministries, Apostle Chibuzo Chinyere, opened the doors of compassion, offering free accommodation, scholarships for their children, and other forms of support in public announcement. More than 60 returnees now find temporary shelter at the OPM-free estate in Alu River State after arriving home empty-handed, faced with the difficult path of rebuilding lives once interrupted. At the facility, a new chapter unfolds. The returnees, once strangers to this space, now begin adjusting to a reality shaped by hope, gratitude, and the search for stability. Behind the closed doors of the accommodations are self-contained apartments, each providing a place of rest for families beginning again. For this family of 6, the camp surroundings offer a temporary anchor after a turbulent journey. They say the environment provides the stability needed while they prepare for the future. Counting the losses left behind, the head of this family, Mr. Davison Okafo, describes the moment as a fresh beginning. He says the promise of education for his children from the OPM founder has renewed his hope as he works to rebuild.
Omega Power Ministry, he gave us accommodation, foodstuff, money, and bed, many things, you understand. So he's a good man. Buy an accident car and rebuild it and sell, you understand. That's what I was doing there. I left my car that side, so even my properties I left them because I don't want to lose my life because I have family, so I have to run down home with my family when the federal government brought a flight.
For many others, the accommodation, feeding and free education support have become a lifeline after leaving South Africa with almost nothing. Their gratitude is deep, and so is the awareness that this shelter is only a temporary bridge. They appeal to government, corporate organizations and well-meaning Nigerians to support their reintegration and help them regain independence.
I'm into interior decorator. I design curtains, window curtain, window blind. That's my job. So before they close our businesses. So if I got that money, I would like to open a shop and still start my business back to take care of my family.
The only thing we could try to gather is just the little cloth. So if I should say I should gather everything, maybe close to like almost maybe 4 to 5 million naira.
Present during the visit, the founder of Omega Power Ministries assures eligible returnees of opportunities to rebuild, including employment for qualified nurses and teachers at the OPM-free hospital and schools. He added that school-age children will be enrolled in the ministry's scholarship program when schools resume. While those seeking skills development are encouraged to register at the OPM-free acquisition center. However, he calls on the government to assist their upkeep, noting that sustaining the support remains a major commitment.
If the state government, if the federal government can come in, if NGOs, international NGOs can come in and support, well, we're just doing the total and offering is massive. Whether it's not heavy, it's heavy. But because of the passion and love, that's why we're doing it. Not that the money is so much,
62 returnees are being housed at the OPM-free estate right where I'm standing. And for most of them who came back empty-handed, after being dislocated from their source of livelihood and of course a place they call home. They are now here to start from scratch, and they say that they can't do this all by themselves, that they would need the government to come in and offer help, even as they are getting help from this kind-hearted individual. From Alu, River State, Deborah Mie Fiberesiba, Channels Television News.
On the international scene, the United States announced new tariffs on 60 trading partners in the latest trade war escalation reignited by US President Donald Trump when he returned to office last year. This took effect on Friday, with UK, China, and the EU targeted to face a tariff of 10% to 12.5% on all goods, accounting for almost all American imports. The US Supreme Court had ruled earlier this year that many of the tariffs imposed globally under emergency powers were illegally enacted. According to the Office of the US Trade Representatives, trading partners that have made commitments to adopt and effectively enforce bans on forced labor imports will be subject to a 10% tariff, while those that have not will have the higher 12.5% rate. Well, that reports there on trade tariffs from by the US. That's for us on this week's edition of News Round. Thanks a bit for watching. On behalf of the production team and everyone here, I'm Kelly Egiga. Bye now.